The Battle of Awazu in Omi Province. A Minamoto commander named Minamoto no Yoshinaka is being hunted down by forces led by his own relatives. The Genpei War has fractured into an internal reckoning, and Yoshinaka is losing. Outnumbered, his men are being cut down in open country. In the last moments, with the collapse already visible, one of the final riders at his side is a woman in armor. Her name is Tomoe Gozen. She appears in records from the war as a mounted warrior armed with sword and bow. The tale of the Heike calls her a fighter worth 1,000 men. It lists her skill in horseback riding, archery, and close combat. Her armor, her weapons, and her presence among commanders mark her as an exception in a time when women rarely rode with field armies. The country around her is breaking apart. The Genpei War began 4 years earlier as a struggle between the Taira and the Minamoto for control of the imperial court. It spread through every major province, pulled in local clans, and left burned capitals behind it. By 1184, the Minamoto hold the advantage, but their commanders fight among themselves for control of what comes next. Yoshinaka's campaign started as part of that war. It ends here, near Awazu, where his army has no ground left to retreat to. Tomoe Gozen remains beside him through the last hours of fighting, the only woman named in the sources of the war. May 1180. Prince Mochihito issues a call to arms against the Taira, who control the court in Kyoto. The first clash comes fast. On the 20th of June 1180, fighting breaks out at Uji, just outside the capital, on and around the bridge over the Uji River. The Taira win that opening battle, and Mochihito is killed. The conflict spreads across provinces as Minamoto leaders raise forces in different regions. In the east, Minamoto no Yoritomo builds a power base at Kamakura and gathers allies among warrior families. For stretches, the war moves in bursts. After early fighting in 1180, major campaigns intensify again in 1183. In that year, Minamoto no Yoshinaka, a cousin of Yoritomo, pushes down from the north and defeats Taira forces at Kurikara Pass. The victory opens the road to Kyoto. Yoshinaka enters the capital in 1183 and takes control there, forcing a shift in where the war is fought and who can claim to speak for the Minamoto. From this point, the Genpei War becomes a fight on two fronts. The Minamoto continue the campaign against the Taira to the west and south. Inside the Minamoto, rivalry hardens between commanders who now hold armies, land, and access to the court. This is the pressure that closes around Yoshinaka in early 1184, with his enemies coming from his own clan. Autumn 1183. Minamoto no Yoshinaka moves into Kyoto with an army. Court officials and rival commanders watch him arrive as a provincial warlord with fresh troops and fresh momentum. The Taira leadership withdraws from the capital and takes the child, Emperor Antoku, with them. Yoshinaka holds Kyoto only briefly. His position depends on a court that expects obedience and on allies who expect rewards. In the background, the main Minamoto leader in the east, Minamoto no Yoritomo, is building his own base of power. The retired emperor Go Shirakawa looks for leverage and calls on Yoritomo to deal with Yoshinaka's growing influence. Inside Yoshinaka's camp, one name stays attached to him in the surviving war tale tradition. The tale of the Heike, a central narrative source for the Genpei War, places Tomoe Gozen in Yoshinaka's service and describes her as an armed combatant. The same tradition describes a practical arrangement. When fighting is close, Yoshinaka sends Tomoe out as a lead captain, equipped in armor and armed for battle. Yoshinaka's army holds the capital while rival Minamoto forces gather in the east. In the accounts that preserve Tomoe Gozen, she stays close to Yoshinaka in this period and rides with his campaigns. The clearest surviving description of her comes from the Heike Monogatari tradition. It presents her as a mounted warrior with exceptional skill in horsemanship, archery, and close combat. It describes her as a fighter equal to 1,000 and capable of facing demons or gods in battle. The same tradition ties her to Yoshinaka's household. It identifies her as a servant and lover, with some reports describing her as a wife. It also explains the family connection that placed her near him early, through her mother's role as Yoshinaka's wet nurse. Yoshinaka entrusts her with authority on the battlefield. The Heike tradition calls her an Ippo no Teisho, a leading commander, and describes her leading troops into combat under his orders. January 1184. Yoshinaka holds Kyoto with an army that has been living off the capital for months. Complaints reach the court about discipline and violence in the streets. Yoshinaka demands authority that the retired emperor Go Shirakawa refuses to grant. One night, Yoshinaka strikes at the center of imperial power. He attacks the Hojujidono Palace complex, sets it on fire, and seizes Go Shirakawa. Men die in the fighting inside the palace grounds. The political line hardens immediately. Orders go out against Yoshinaka. From the east, Yoritomo's faction sends Minamoto no Yoshitsune and Minamoto no Noriori toward Kyoto with a large force. Yoshinaka abandons the capital and rides out with what remains of his army. His men tear up the bridge over the Uji River to slow pursuit. On the 19th of February 1184, Yoshitsune's troops force a crossing at Uji and break Yoshinaka's rear guard outside the city. Yoshinaka's retreat from Kyoto turns into a series of running fights across the provinces. In the older records, Tomoe appears in 3 of these engagements as a combat commander. At Yokotagawara in 1181, she rides with a small mounted group and kills several enemy soldiers herself. The tradition says she takes 7 heads, a measure of victory used in the period to record kills and confirm merit. In the spring of 1183, at Tonomiyama, she commands a unit of 1,000 cavalry and wins the field for Yoshinaka's side. It is one of the few examples in surviving war tales of a woman leading a force that size. At Uchiide no Hama in early 1184, she fights again, 300 of Yoshinaka's men face 6,000 from the opposing army. Almost all die in the fight. The Heike version counts Tomoe among 5 survivors who cut through the line and escape. Each report is brief. They mark her as a presence in Yoshinaka's campaigns and as one of his few tested field officers. The 21st of February 1184. Yoshinaka reaches Awazu in Omi province with the remnants of his force. Yoshitsune and Noriyori close in with a much larger army, and the fighting tightens into a final stand. In the tale of the Heike account, Yoshinaka's group keeps shrinking under pressure until only 5 riders remain with him, and Tomoe is still there among them. Yoshinaka turns to her and orders her to leave the field. He says his last battle will become gossip if people say he kept a woman at his side. Tomoe rides off a short distance and stops. In the same account, a mounted group comes into view, led by Onda no Hachiro Moroshige, a fighter known for his strength in Musashi province. Tomoe charges straight into them. She rides up alongside Moroshiga, grabs him, pulls him down against her saddle, and cuts off his head. She throws the head away and turns her horse toward the eastern provinces. Yoshinaka remains on the field after Tomoe rides east. His horse is exhausted and sinks into deep mud. The enemy closes in from all sides. He pulls himself free and continues on foot with his foster brother Imai Kanehira. They fight until Imai's horse is shot. Imai kills himself rather than be taken. Yoshinaka removes his helmet and waits for the final charge. An enemy rider drives a spear through his throat. When the battle ends, Yoshinaka's body is found among his men. Reports spread through the Minamoto camps that Kiso Yoshinaka, who once held Kyoto, is dead. The campaign against him is over, and the way to Kamakura lies open for Yoritomo's rule. Tomoe rides east after Awazu. After that, written accounts give different outcomes for her life. One line of tradition connects her to Wada Yoshimori, a Minamoto leader. In these versions, she becomes part of his household, and later stories link her to a son named Asahina Yoshihide, who appears in later warrior lore. Another line of tradition places her in religious retirement. A Genpei Seisuiki-based account describes her taking the tonsure and living into old age while praying for Yoshinaka and her family. These versions circulate side by side in later centuries, and scholars treat them as multiple medieval histories attached to the same name. Tomoe's name remains inside the war tale tradition that preserves the memory of the Genpei War. The Heike Monogatari gives her the most detailed appearance, but later compilations like the Genpei Seisuiki and other regional chronicles repeat and expand her story. Writers in the medieval and Edo periods use her as a subject for performance and illustration. No and Kabuki plays place her between loyalty and survival. Prints and paintings show her on horseback in armor, with a drawn bow or sword. In modern history and culture, she appears as one of the earliest named female combatants in Japanese literature. Her presence in the Heike cycle gives evidence that stories of women in warfare circulated from the 13th century onward. Her recorded deeds are brief, but they remain part of the historical frame that links the fall of the Taira, the rise of the Minamoto, and the establishment of samurai rule in Japan.